Stop the bus. She's bleeding. Someone call 911. My billionaire ex-husband sat beside me on a cross-country bus, not knowing I was carrying his child, until blood started pooling beneath me at 70 miles per hour. I had kept the secret for 10 months. My body kept it for exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes. The moment Charles Davidson saw the crimson staining my jeans, everything I'd hidden, everything I'd run from, everything I'd convinced myself I could handle alone, came crashing down on a Greyhound bus on Interstate 55. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? He wasn't the villain I'd spent 10 months hating. Before we start, take a moment to subscribe and like this video. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop it in the comments. Your support helps us bring even more captivating stories your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single one. Thank you. Now, let's get into the story. Stop the bus. Someone help her. She's bleeding. The driver's panicked voice cut through the rumble of the Greyhound engine as I doubled over against the window, crimson seeping through my jeans. The world tilted sideways, gravity losing its grip. Strong hands caught me before I crumpled into the aisle. Hands I would recognize anywhere. Irene. Irene, look at me. Through the haze of pain, I saw his face. Charles Davidson, my billionaire ex-husband. The man whose divorce papers I'd signed 10 months ago. I'm an EMT, let me through. A woman in her 40s pushed past the gathering passengers, her emergency kit already open. Can you tell me where the pain is? Lower abdomen, Charles answered, his voice breaking with fear as he pressed his jacket against my legs, trying to stop the bleeding. It started about 20 minutes ago. I thought she was just car sick, but... Sir, I need her to answer. The paramedic knelt beside me, checking my pulse as Charles held me against his chest, his hands shaking. Miss, this is important. Are you on any medications? Any pre-existing conditions I should know about? 4 hours before the medical emergency, I stood frozen at the Memphis Greyhound station, Gate 7. My ticket to Chicago trembled in my sweating palm as I spotted him near the ticket counter. Charles Davidson. My ex-husband. Time seemed to slow as he adjusted the collar of his crisp white Oxford shirt, his phone pressed against his ear, completely unaware of my presence. Even in the harsh fluorescent lighting of a bus terminal, he looked exactly as devastating as the day I'd walked away. Tall, composed, and completely out of place among the budget travelers. I turned to leave. Perhaps I could catch the next bus, tomorrow's bus, next week's bus, any bus but this one. Attention, passengers on Route 47 to Chicago. The gate agent's voice halted my escape. Due to a mechanical issue with bus 1152, we're consolidating routes 47 and 51. All passengers will board bus 1147. Updated seat assignments are being sent to your mobile devices now. My phone buzzed. Seat reassignment, row 12, seat A, window. Charles' head snapped up at the announcement. Our eyes locked across the scuffed linoleum floor, and I watched recognition ripple through his expression. Shock, then something softer, then carefully controlled neutrality. The agent continued, oblivious to the tension crackling between us. We apologize for the inconvenience. Boarding will begin in 5 minutes. Charles was already approaching, purpose in each deliberate step. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, still flat enough to hide the truth, but not for much longer. Irene. Just my name, yet somehow loaded with 10 months of unanswered calls, unsigned reconciliation letters, and a truth he didn't know existed. Charles. I kept my voice flat, emotionless, the tone I'd rehearsed 1,000 times for a moment I prayed would never come. I didn't know you'd be on this route, he said, studying my face with an intensity that made me want to run. Neither did I. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. Quite the coincidence. His jaw tightened. You're going to Chicago. New job. Urban planning. I shifted my backpack to create a barrier between us. Fresh start. His eyes swept over me, cataloging changes, searching for answers. You look different. It's been 10 months. Beautiful, he corrected, his voice softening in that way that used to undo me. "But tired. Are you feeling all right?" I wasn't. The nausea had been relentless since week 6, and now at 18 weeks, the exhaustion was bone deep. But Charles Davidson didn't deserve my honesty anymore. "I'm fine." The final boarding announcement crackled through the station speakers. Charles gestured toward the gate. "After you." Walking down that narrow bus aisle with him trailing 3 steps behind was excruciating. I could feel his presence like heat against my spine, could sense the questions he was swallowing. When I reached row 12, I actually laughed, a hollow, disbelieving sound that caught in my throat. Seat 12A. Window. Seat 12B. Charles' leather messenger bag already claiming the space. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered under my breath. 10 hours to Chicago, he said, something unreadable flickering across his face. "Together. 10 hours I'll spend sleeping." I shoved my backpack under the seat with more force than necessary. He reached across to help me adjust it, our hands brushing. The contact sent electricity up my arm, and I jerked away like I'd been burned. "I can manage." "I know you can." There was an edge to his voice that made my throat tighten. "You've been managing everything alone for 10 months, haven't you?" I slid into the window seat and immediately turned away, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. My posture screamed, "Don't touch me, don't talk to me, don't look at me." Charles settled into the seat beside me, and the space suddenly felt impossibly small. His cologne, cedar and something expensive I could never name, filled my lungs, bringing with it a flood of memories I'd worked hard to bury. The bus driver appeared at our row, a graying black man with kind eyes. "You'll need anything before we head out?" "Water. Snacks. Got a long ride ahead." "Water, please," I managed, my mouth suddenly dry. "Make that 2, Charles added. Then, quieter, almost to himself, "And do you have any ginger ale? The kind that settles stomachs?" The driver nodded. "Sure thing. Got some crackers too, if you need 'em. Motion sickness is no joke on these old highways." I didn't look at Charles, but I could feel his eyes on me. He knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what. Not yet. The first hour passed in excruciating silence. I pressed my forehead against the window, watching Memphis fade into Tennessee countryside, trying to ignore the warmth radiating from Charles' body mere inches away. The bus rumbled beneath us, and with every bump in the highway, my stomach lurched. 18 weeks pregnant, and the nausea still hadn't let up. My doctor said it should have eased by now. Apparently, my body didn't get the memo. "You want the ginger ale." Charles' voice broke through my concentration. I'd been focusing on a distant water tower, using it as a fix point to combat the motion sickness. "I'm fine." "You're gripping the armrest so hard your knuckles are white." I loosened my grip but didn't look at him. I said I'm fine. He was quiet for a moment, then I heard the crack of a plastic bottle opening. The smell of ginger hit my nostrils, sharp, settling, exactly what I needed and absolutely could not accept from him. "It's just ginger ale, Irene. Not a marriage proposal." The bitterness in his voice made me flinch. I deserved that. Another wave of nausea rolled through me, and I swallowed hard, tasting bile. The bus driver took a turn too fast, and my stomach revolted. I grabbed the seat pocket in front of me, breathing through my nose. "Pull over," Charles called out suddenly. "She's going to be sick." I'm not, but I was. Oh God, I absolutely was. "Sir, we can't make unscheduled stops," the driver called back. "There's a rest area in 2 miles," an older woman across the aisle offered helpfully. "Says so on the sign." Those were the longest 2 miles of my life. Charles wordlessly handed me a plastic bag from his messenger bag, because of course the man who planned everything had an emergency supply, and I held it in my lap, praying I wouldn't need it. When the bus finally pulled into the rest stop, I practically climbed over Charles to get out, ignoring his offered hand. The bathroom was a blessing. I splashed cold water on my face, stared at my pale reflection, and whispered to my stomach, "You're going to blow our cover, little one." When I came back, Charles had moved to the aisle seat, giving me easier access to escape. He'd also opened the window shade halfway, bought crackers from the vending machine, and was pointedly reading something on his phone. "Thank you," I muttered, sliding past him. "Don't." His voice was tight. "Don't thank me for basic human decency, Irene. Even strangers deserve that." The implication hung in the air between us. "You don't even treat me like a stranger. You treat me like an enemy." If only he knew that treating him like an enemy was the only way I could survive sitting this close to him without breaking. Mile marker 247. 3 hours into the journey. The crackers had helped, but the tension between us was suffocating. "I never wanted it to end the way it did," Charles said suddenly, breaking 2 hours of silence. I kept my eyes on the passing farmland. "Then you shouldn't have betrayed my family." "Is that what you think I did?" His voice carried something I couldn't identify. Pain? Frustration? "Irene, look at me." "I don't need to look at you. I saw the bank statements, Charles. The wire transfers. You and Marcus Welland, moving money through my family's development project like it was your personal." I was building a case against him. The words hit me like a slap. I turned to face him for the first time since we'd left the rest stop. "Excuse me." Charles's jaw was tight, his blue eyes searching mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Marcus Welland was using the Marshall Community Development Initiative for wire fraud and embezzlement. I was gathering evidence. "You're lying." "I'm not." He pulled out his phone, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. "I couldn't tell you. It would have put you in danger. It would have compromised everything your father and I were trying to protect." "My father." I laughed, but it came out broken. "Now you're dragging my father into your lies." His phone screen lit up with what looked like encrypted messages. I caught fragments. "Welland movement confirmed. HUD fraud documentation. Keep IM clear. I am Irene Marshall. Stop." I turned away, my heart pounding. "Just stop. I know you saw the transfers. I know what it looked like. But those accounts were monitored by federal investigators. Every single transaction was documented, tracked." "You met with him." My voice rose, and several passengers glanced our way. I lowered it to a fierce whisper. "I saw you, Charles. Multiple times. Late nights. Secret phone calls. You were in business with a man who was destroying everything my grandmother built. I was in an investigation with the FBI to stop him from destroying it." His voice cracked. "There's a difference, Irene. A massive difference." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I loved you too much to risk you." The past tense gutted me. Loved. Past tense. Charles must have seen something in my face because he reached for my hand. I pulled away like his touch burned. "Don't. You don't get to rewrite history because it's convenient." His phone buzzed. Another encrypted message flashed across the screen. "Welland indictment sealed. Case closed." I looked away before I could read more. I couldn't afford to hope. Not when hope had already destroyed me once. The pain started as a dull ache just past the Arkansas border. I shifted in my seat, trying to find a position that didn't make everything worse. The nausea had finally subsided, but now there was this pressure, low and insistent, like a warning I didn't want to hear. "You okay?" Charles asked, because apparently the man noticed everything. "Fine," I lied, pressing my hand against my lower abdomen. Then I felt it. Warm. Wet. Wrong. I looked down. A dark stain was spreading across my jeans, growing larger with each passing second. Blood. "Oh God." The words came out as a whisper, but the terror in them must have been loud enough. Charles followed my gaze. His face went white. "Irene. Stop the bus." I heard myself screaming. "Stop the bus right now." Everything happened too fast and too slow all at once. The driver pulled onto the shoulder. Passengers erupted in concerned murmurs. Charles was already moving, his hands hovering over me like he didn't know where to touch, how to help. I'm bleeding, I gasped. Charles, I'm bleeding, I can't. Stop the bus. She's bleeding. Someone call 911. A woman pushed through the gathering crowd. 40-something, with sharp eyes and capable hands already reaching for the emergency kit in her bag. I'm an EMT. Sir, give me space. Charles moved but kept his hand on my shoulder. I could feel him shaking. The paramedic, her name tag said Chen, knelt in front of me, her voice calm and professional. I need you to breathe for me. Can you tell me where the pain is? Lower abdomen, I managed. It started about 20 minutes ago. Any medical conditions I should know about? Medications? Allergies? I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. This is important. Her eyes dropped to the blood, then back to my face. Are you on any blood thinners? Birth control? Prenatal vitamins? The world stopped. Charles' hand tightened on my shoulder. Miss, I need you to answer me. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. Are you pregnant? I couldn't look at Charles. Couldn't face what was about to break. But my son, our son, was in danger, and nothing else mattered. Yes. My voice cracked. 18 weeks. I felt Charles' entire body go rigid beside me. 18, his voice was barely audible. Irene. 18 weeks. The math was simple. Brutal. Undeniable. 10 months since our divorce. 18 weeks pregnant. He knew. God help me, he finally knew everything. The ambulance arrived in 12 minutes. It felt like 12 hours. They loaded me onto a stretcher, started in 4, asked questions I could barely answer through the fog of fear. Charles climbed in without asking permission, his face a mask of barely controlled emotion. Sir, are you family? The younger paramedic asked. I'm her husband. The lie came out automatically, then he corrected himself, voice hollow. Ex-husband. And apparently, the father of her child. The paramedic's eyes widened slightly but he said nothing. At the hospital, they rushed me into an examination room. Charles followed until a nurse physically blocked his path. Sir, you'll have to wait outside while we examine her. I'm not leaving. Hospital policy. That's my child in there. His voice broke on the last word. I'm not leaving. I should have told him to go. Should have asserted my rights, my privacy, my autonomy. But I was terrified, and despite everything, some broken part of me still wanted him there. Let him stay, I whispered. The ultrasound technician found the heartbeat within seconds. Strong. Steady. Perfect. Baby looks good, she said, relief evident in her voice. Heartbeat is strong at 152 beats per minute. The bleeding appears to be from a subchorionic hematoma, essentially a blood clot between the uterine wall and the placenta. Scary, but manageable with rest. Charles stood frozen by the door, staring at the monitor where our son's heart pulsed like a tiny, defiant drum. The medical team left us alone. The silence was deafening. 10 months. His voice was barely above a whisper. You've known for 10 months. Charles. Were you ever going to tell me? He finally looked at me, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke me. Were you planning to let me meet my child at 18? 21? Never. I thought you betrayed my family, I said weakly. I thought. So you decided to betray me. His hands were shaking. You decided to erase me from our child's life because of what you thought. Tears streamed down my face. I was protecting. Protecting who, Irene? Because it sure as hell wasn't me. It wasn't our baby. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. Call your father. What? Call your father. Each word was sharp, controlled. Ask him about Marcus Welland. Ask him about the investigation. Ask him about who was really protecting your family's legacy. My phone was in my bag. Charles handed it to me, his jaw tight. With trembling fingers, I dialed my father's number. If Charles was lying, I'd know in seconds. If he wasn't, God help me, what had I done? My father answered on the second ring. Irene? Baby girl, are you all right? You never call this early. Did Charles work with the FBI to investigate Marcus Welland? The words tumbled out, sharp and desperate. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Daddy! Where are you? His voice had changed completely. Careful. Guarded. I'm in a hospital in Arkansas. I need you to answer the question. Was Charles investigating Marcus Welland, or was he in business with him? Another pause. Then, quietly, put me on speaker. My hands shook as I pressed the button. Charles stepped closer, his eyes never leaving my face. Charles saved our family, Irene. My father's voice filled the small hospital room. He spent 2 years building a federal case against Marcus Welland for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to defraud HUD. He risked everything, his reputation, his business relationships, his marriage, to protect what your grandmother built. The room tilted. I gripped the hospital bed railing. Why didn't you tell me? My voice broke. Why did you let me divorce him thinking? Because your grandmother made me promise not to. The pain in his voice was palpable. 3 days before she passed, she sat me down and told me Charles had come to her about his suspicions. She gave him her blessing to do whatever it took to protect the initiative, even if it meant operating in secret. Even if it meant you might hate him for it. No. Tears streamed down my face. No, Grandma wouldn't. She did it to protect you, baby. Marcus Welland had connections to some dangerous people. If you'd known what Charles was doing, you could have been targeted. Used as leverage. Your grandmother loved you too much to risk that. Charles turned away, his shoulders rigid, but I saw him wipe his eyes. The investigation wrapped up 3 weeks ago, my father continued. Welland was indicted on 47 counts. He's looking at 20 years minimum. The initiative is safe. Your grandmother's legacy is safe. Because of Charles. I divorced him, I whispered. I threw him out. I told him I never wanted to see him again. I know, baby. And he let you, because keeping you safe mattered more to him than keeping you. I looked at Charles, really looked at him for the first time in 10 months. This man who'd sacrificed everything. This man I'd punished for loving me. This man whose child I'd hidden out of spite disguised as self-protection. Daddy, I choked out. What have I done? They released me from the hospital 36 hours later with strict orders for bed rest and a follow-up appointment in Chicago. Charles had barely spoken since my father's call, maintaining a careful, professional distance that hurt worse than his anger had. He'd booked us separate hotel rooms. Arranged a wheelchair for me at the bus station even though I insisted I could walk. Carried my bags without a word. There's someone who wants to meet you, he said as we pulled up to a downtown Chicago office building in the Uber he'd insisted on paying for. If you're up for it. The elevator took us to the 14th floor. Federal building. U.S. Attorney's office. A woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes met us in the lobby. Mrs. Davidson, or is it Ms. Marshall now? Marshall, I said quietly. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Okonkwo. She shook my hand, then led us into a conference room where files were spread across a massive table. Your ex-husband is a hero, Ms. Marshall. I wanted you to hear that from someone who saw his work firsthand. She opened the first folder. Bank statements. Wire transfers. The same documents I'd found on Charles' laptop a year ago, the ones that had convinced me he'd betrayed us. These weren't business transactions, Okonkwo explained. These were tracers. Every dollar that moved through these accounts was documented, photographed, and logged as evidence. Mr. Davidson created a paper trail that exposed a $7 million fraud scheme. She opened another file. Photos of Charles meeting with Marcus Welland. The same meetings I'd seen, the ones that had shattered my trust. These meetings were recorded. Mr. Davidson wore a wire to 43 separate encounters over 18 months. The audio evidence alone resulted in 19 of the 47 counts. My throat tightened. He wore a wire to meetings with a man who had documented connections to organized crime, Okonkwo continued. We offered him protection. He refused, said it would raise suspicion and put your family at risk. Charles stood by the window, his back to us, saying nothing. Your grandmother contacted us initially, Okonkwo said gently. She suspected something was wrong with the initiative's finances. Mr. Davidson confirmed her suspicions and volunteered to go undercover. He didn't have to. He risked his safety, his business reputation, and clearly his marriage. Most people wouldn't sacrifice that much for their own family, let alone their spouses. I stared at the evidence scattered before me. 2 years of Charles S. life, documented in meticulous detail. 2 years of sacrifice I'd repaid with divorce papers and a hidden pregnancy. Why? My voice cracked. Why didn't you just tell me? Charles finally turned around. Because keeping you safe mattered more than you understanding why. My new apartment was a modest one-bedroom in Hyde Park, worlds away from the penthouse we'd shared in Memphis. Charles helped me up the stairs, doctor's orders were strict about the bed rest, and set my bags down in the tiny living room. You need groceries, he said, surveying the empty kitchen. And prenatal vitamins. When's your next OB appointment? Thursday. 2 o'clock. I lowered myself carefully onto the second-hand couch. Charles, you don't have to. Don't. His voice was quiet but firm. Don't tell me what I don't have to do for my child. The word hung between us. Asterisk my child dot asterisk not asterisk our child dot asterisk not yet. He pulled out his phone. I'm putting it in my calendar. The appointment. I'd like to be there, if you'll allow it. Of course. The words came out smaller than I intended. You have every right. I'm not talking about rights, Irene. He sat in the chair across from me, maintaining that careful distance. I'm talking about what's best for our son. You think it's a boy. I don't know what it is. Something flickered across his face. I've missed 18 weeks of knowing. The accusation wasn't spoken, but I heard it anyway. I'm sorry, I whispered. Charles, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting. I know what you thought. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And I understand why you thought it. But Irene, you didn't even give me a chance to explain. You saw evidence, made assumptions, and ended us without a conversation. You were keeping secrets. To protect you. There's a difference between secrets meant to harm and secrets meant to shield. He ran his hand through his hair, exhausted. I need you to understand that difference if we're going to do this. Do what? Co-parent. Be in each other's lives. Raise this child together even though we're not together. He met my eyes. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Irene. And I don't know if you can forgive yourself. But our baby deserves parents who can at least be civil. I want more than civil, I admitted. I want. Don't. His voice cracked. Please don't tell me what you want. Not yet. I'm not ready to hear it. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. Thursday at 2, he finally said, standing. I'll pick you up at 1:30. Do you need anything before then? Just time, I whispered. He nodded. That, I can give you. But as he walked toward the door, I wasn't sure time could heal what I'd broken. Or if either of us would survive the wait. Charles arrived at 1:15, 45 minutes early, holding a smoothie from the organic place 3 blocks over. Strawberry banana, he said, handing it to me. You used to drink these when you were stressed. I still do. I took it, surprised he remembered. Thank you. The drive to the medical center was quiet but not uncomfortable. He'd done this before, I realized, learned to exist in silence without it feeling like warfare. The waiting room was full of couples. Happy couples. Couples who were building families together, not trying to rebuild what they destroyed. A pregnant woman across from us rested her head on her partner's shoulder, his hand protective on her belly. I looked away. Ms. Marshall. The ultrasound technician called my name. Young, cheerful, oblivious to the tension. And you must be Dad. Yes, Charles said simply. The examination room was dim. I lay back on the table, and the technician squeezed warm gel across my stomach. Charles stood at a careful distance until the technician gestured to the chair beside me. You'll want a good view for this, she said with a smile. The monitor flickered to life, and suddenly there he was. Not a blob. Not a cluster of cells. A baby. Our baby. Oh my God, I breathed. The technician moved the wand, narrating cheerfully. There's the head, nice and round. 4 chambers of the heart, all looking perfect. Spine looks beautiful. And let's see those legs, active little one you've got here. Charles leaned forward, his entire body rigid with focus. I saw his hand move toward mine, then stop, hovering in the space between us. I closed the distance, threading my fingers through his. He didn't pull away. Do you want to know the gender? The technician asked. I looked at Charles. His eyes were wet. Yes, we said simultaneously. She moved the wand lower, angling for a better view. Well, it looks like you're having a little boy. Congratulations. A son. We were having a son. Charles made a sound, half laugh, half sob, and pressed his forehead against our joined hands. His shoulders shook. A boy, he whispered. Irene, we're having a boy. I was crying too, watching our son move on the screen, his tiny heart beating strong and sure. This child who'd survived my stress, my bleeding scare, my broken certainty about everything. This child who was giving us a reason to find our way back to each other. He's perfect, I said. Charles looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Yeah, he really is. For the first time in 10 months, when he looked at me, I didn't see anger. I saw hope. The therapist's office smelled like lavender and hard truths. Dr. Patricia Morrison specialized in trauma-informed couples therapy, and she didn't let us hide behind politeness or surface-level apologies. Week after week, she made us say the things we'd been too afraid to voice. Irene, why didn't you trust that a white man could love you without ulterior motives? She asked during our 4th session. I looked at Charles, then away. Because my whole life, I watched powerful white men use black communities for profit. My grandmother warned me. My father warned me. When I saw those transfers, it confirmed every fear I'd inherited. And Charles, Dr. Morrison turned to him, why didn't you trust Irene enough to tell her the truth? Because I was raised to believe protection means control. His voice was raw. My father protected my mother by making decisions for her. I thought keeping Irene safe meant keeping her in the dark. I didn't realize I was repeating the same patriarchal patterns I claimed to reject. The conversations were brutal. Necessary. Healing. By week 28, Charles was staying over 3 nights a week, sleeping on the couch, helping me navigate the exhaustion and swollen ankles. By week 32, we'd moved his things into the 2nd bedroom, the one that was supposed to be the nursery. We'll make it work, he said, assembling a crib in my bedroom. Our son needs space more than I need privacy. We painted the nursery together on a Sunday in October. Soft sage green, gender-neutral and calming. Charles's hand covered mine on the roller, guiding it across the wall. I forgive you, he said quietly. I stopped, paint dripping onto the drop cloth. What? I forgive you for hiding him from me. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. But I forgive you. I don't know if I forgive myself yet. Then let me carry that until you can. He kissed my temple, gentle and careful. We're going to be okay, Irene. All 3 of us. Isaiah Charles Marshall Davidson was born on a Tuesday in December, weighing 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with his father's blue eyes and his mother's defiant spirit. Charles cut the cord with shaking hands, then climbed into the hospital bed beside me, our son cradled between us. Remember that bus ride? I whispered, exhausted and euphoric. Worst day of my life, he murmured. Best worst thing that ever happened to us. He kissed me then, softly, like a promise being rebuilt one breath at a time. Our son yawned, unbothered by his parents' complicated history, focused only on the love that had finally brought us home. Thanks for sticking with me until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit like so you're the first to hear our next story. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I can't wait to hear from you.